Yeah, joining us now is Texas Congressman and Vice Chairman of the Subcommittee on Health, Dr. Michael Burgess, who knows a thing or two about the healthcare system. Congressman, nice to see you this morning. Happy New Year, or not so happy for a lot of people.
Right.
Nice to see you this morning. Break this down for us. What kind of taxes are we talking about here that basically have nothing to do with the fiscal cliff, right?
Correct. These are baked into the cake, and they're happening regardless of whatever happens in the House or Senate today. There's 5 changes, major changes in tax policy that start on January 1st as a result of the Affordable Care Act. Probably the biggest one is a payroll tax for individuals who earn over 200,000 as individuals, 250 as a couple. This 0.9% payroll tax is also applied to dividends and capital gains. This is different. Payroll taxes typically haven't applied to interest income in the past, but this is a new tax that is being levied as a payroll tax. It's collected under the auspices of Medicare, but it actually doesn't spend any time in the Medicare Trust Fund. It goes to fund subsidies in the federal exchanges. The other tax, the medical device tax, 2.8% gross receipts tax on medical devices. That means whether a company makes money or not, it is still taxed at that 2.8% rate. And then finally, there's the 3.8% unearned income tax for people, again, the higher income earners who will get hit with that on capital gains and dividends. So these are major changes in tax policy that crept up on most people unawares because we've all been focused on the other stuff.
Yeah, and that medical device tax in particular really hurts because it might stifle innovation, research and development. That's the last thing our medical industry can afford. But I want to ask you about this fiscal cliff latest. It appears, at least for the time being, John Boehner is on the sideline, letting something get hashed out in the Senate between what we understand Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden right now, the vice president. Let's just say if a deal comes out of the Senate that puts this tax increase around $500,000 threshold, say it has satisfactory spending cuts, is there still any chance that type of a bill gets enough Republican support in the House to get signed into law and get done by January 1st?
Well, I wouldn't foreclose on any possibility there, but do remember, the Speaker and the House Republicans are not sidelined. We actually did our work so many months ago that most people don't remember it. We sent a tax bill over to the Senate for them to take up before the August recess. The fact that they've refused to work on it, this extended all tax rates for another 12 months while we work on fundamental tax reform, which really is the sensible way to go about doing this if you just stop and think about it. The actual money delivered under the president's proposal is really pretty paltry, and here's a chance to actually change the tax code. You just had Donald Trump on, who said you need growth in this economy if you're really going to look at economic recovery. Here's an opportunity to do that. It's a shame the president doesn't want to undertake that activity, but again, I wouldn't foreclose any possibility. You got to see a lot on the spending side because, let's be honest, we've got an inauguration coming up in a few days. National debt will be over $16 trillion, but the time the next president is inaugurated, it could be a staggering $22 trillion, and that's what we have to tackle.
That spending is what I want to talk to you next about, because we're hearing word this morning that could be at least one of the major sticking points for Republicans in these negotiations, is that Democrats, while asking for higher tax revenues, then aren't going to balance that approach with using that revenue to cut spending. In fact, we're hearing from some Republicans, John Kyle and others, who've said that Democrats will want to use that then for increased spending in other areas. We don't know all the details of it yet because it's behind closed doors. What are you hearing, and do you agree with that?
Well, the historical perspective, when Ronald Reagan agreed to a tax increase, they got the taxes, they never got the spending cuts. George H.W. Bush, same thing back in the early 90s. So the historical precedent is the taxes go in right away, the spending cuts never materialize. And, we've seen that movie. And the problem is that the situation is so dire now with the amount of debt and deficit. That's what's going to rend the fabric of our republic, not the fact that we want to punish successful people in the tax code. I mean, that's tinkering around the edges. Let's get serious about the spending side. No one can tell me that every penny out of every dollar the federal government spends goes to some good end. There are plenty of places And, you know, the fact of the matter is, if this were all done in congressional committees on C-SPAN in an open and transparent process, people wouldn't tolerate the amount of waste that goes on in federal agencies. But because it's hidden and no one knows about it, it just continues on.
Congressman, what the president has said is if no deal comes out of the Senate, he's going to propose legislation that goes over to the House that simply says extend the tax rates for those making $250,000 or less. How politically perilous might it be for the Republican-controlled House to vote no on such a bill?
Well, look, the president is a constitutional scholar, so he knows better than I that all tax bills must originate in the House of Representatives, not in the House. So there's a flaw in his logic even right at the beginning. But look, again, I'm not going to foreclose any possibility. If I can see some serious movement on spending, I'll look at whatever the tax piece is. But the president says he was reelected to raise taxes on the rich. Guess what? I won an election, and I won that election not by raising taxes on the top 2%, the middle 2%, or the bottom 2%. I was elected to cut spending, and that's where my focus is.
That's true. Only 15 of the 234 House Republicans are in districts won by the president. So to your point, that makes a lot of sense. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Happy New Year to you. Hopefully.
Thank you.